Again, guys, this is Steven. I'm back once more to bug you again about the DC Collectibles figures. Today I intend to talk about a bit about the females that were released along the New 52 lines. So last time I talked to you about the Crime Syndicate and their reinvention or interpretation through the New 52 series. This time I'm going to cover some of the females that were also put in a sort of a reinvented way, most of them. How would they look like as a part of the New 52 or the newer comics that were also published along with the New 52. So this time we'll just talk about the ladies who were part of it. I'm still missing a few, but I will just show you the ones I have so far. So I'm going to start with Supergirl. I believe this was a design that was meant specifically for the New 52, or at least newer comics. So this is how she looks like. Her costume pretty much remains the same color-wise, except the design is different. It's a sort of a different take on her. Her boots have been modified altogether, and she does still come with a cape. However, all the latest versions of Superman and Supergirl in the toy form, many of them do not have the letter S anymore on the cape. Why is that always constantly omitted these days is beyond me. I appreciate when there is an actual letter S at the back. When I see a plain red cape, it's just boring. And even in the Justice League cartoon series and in the Justice League Unlimited, again, letter S was constantly omitted. From the Superman animated series back in the 1990s, again, letter S was consistently omitted from the cape, in both cases of Superman, Supergirl, and Bizarro. Why was it done like that? I'm not really sure. I wish I knew why they did that. But anyway, it remained a trend not to put the letter S on the cape anymore. Now, if any of you guys know why the DC went with this option, I wouldn't mind you guys sharing your knowledge about it in the comments down below. Just for my own personal knowledge, I would like to know about it, because I'm curious. As far as I know, Superman and Supergirl were always in their full attire, meaning that the letter S was a must on the cape. Why was it omitted? Since recent years, or as I said, going back to 1990s, I'm not really sure why. But anyway, what she carries in her hand here is a small accessory she came with. It's a chunk of kryptonite. I'm assuming she had to use that against her cousin if he went out of control or something like that. I'm not sure why would there be another reason, but then again, I did not read any of the New 52 comics, so I'm not really familiar what's going on. I just take interest in the figures, but I don't really follow comics as much these days. Her articulation is very much similar to the Crime Syndicate. She can move her arms. There is, however, no waist movement, and she cannot do a split much. She can bend in the knees and in the ankles. There is no ankle pivot. It seems like there is an ab crunch, but I never tested it, and it's done in a sort of a strange way. It's not like a straight cut line across. It kind of curves in the mid-waist, so I'm not sure if that would really work. I'm too worried to try, as these figures are known to be always a bit fragile, as I mentioned that in one of my previous videos. Now, her face was painted rather well, except one of the eyes turned out to be a bit of a messy job. And when I say messy, I don't think that she has a huge blotch for an eye, not that. It's just that it's slightly askew, as if it's not really centered as much. And some of the DC figures, especially the females, do seem to suffer from that. And some females in the Marvel Legend as well, depending on the painting technique, so sometimes there is a misfire when it comes to that. Other than that, I don't really see that she has any excess paint of any kind anywhere. A short history about the Supergirl. She's supposed to be the cousin of Superman, who also managed to survive the destruction. And according to the old comics, her city of Kandor also managed to survive, but it was shrunken by Brainiac, a bad guy from DC Universe. And Superman managed to save Kandor and keep it in his Fortress of Solitude, until he found a way to enlarge the city once more, because all the inhabitants inside it are still alive. And they're trying to lead normal lives, except they're all in a shrunken form, including their buildings. And Kara seems to come, if I'm not mistaken, she comes from the city of Kandor. And I believe her parents still live there, in that shrunken city. However, according to one story, she managed to land in a rocket to Earth, and then she found her cousin, who then introduced her to his adoptive parents, the Kents, and then they raised her as a daughter. And then she had adventures along with Superman and adventures of her own. There was a movie made about the Supergirl back in the 80s. It was simply called Supergirl, and it shows her origin and how she faced one of the first villains when she arrived to Earth. There's also appearance of Supergirl in numerous comics dating back several decades, and then of course she appeared in the Superman animated series as well, and she had this, one or two appearances in Adventures of Batman and Robin, I believe, one of the final seasons back in the 90s. And at the present moment she also appears in Batman Lego games as one of the unlockable characters, and of course she has her own TV series, which is now going into season 3. It's a pretty decent series, very light-hearted, no serious dark action or anything like that. I mean, she does fight some bad guys in the TV series, but it's not cranked up like Superman versus Batman or anything like that. It's more toned down, and as I said, light-hearted in nature. So yeah, if you guys are into it, you can check the TV series in October, around October 10 or so. There will be season 3 starting, at least here in Canada. I'm assuming that's also the same date for the US. So yeah, and her real name is Kara Zor-El. Now, the TV series changed certain facts about her origin story. Certain things have been changed, and it turns out she's not the younger one between her and Clark, between her and Superman, that she's the older one, and Superman is the younger one. So they messed around a bit with the origin story, for better or for worse, whichever way you want to look at it. But yeah, so that's Supergirl in the new reinvented design. The next one here we have is Batgirl. Now, Batgirl's costume looks more or less the same as her classic one. I don't really see any major changes to it. She still looks more or less the same. Very nicely sculpted. The hair is sculpted all the way as usual. Relatively soft rubber cape. The hair can impede a bit of a movement of the head, but other than that, she has the same articulation as Supergirl, and in this case she can actually do a split, or actually not a full split, but just about this much. She can put her legs apart, not like the Crime Syndicate that can move their legs a bit further than that. She doesn't seem to have any up crunch whatsoever, and her costume is more armored looking. She can move her arms up and down. No movements in the wrists. She can bend her arms in the elbows, bend her legs in the knees, and then of course she has movement in the ankles, but no ankle pivot, in case you're wondering. And Batgirl here is practically, her secret identity is Barbara Gordon. She's supposed to be, actually not supposed to be, she is the daughter of Commissioner Gordon, a longtime friend and ally of Batman. And she assumed crime fighting, and I guess she was influenced by what Batman was doing in Gotham. So there were many figures of her released over the years, going back to 1990s, during the time of one of the old Batman movies. She had her figure based on a movie. The actress that was playing Batgirl was, I believe, Alicia Silverstone. This was around 1996, 1997. She also appeared in the Batman animated series, and she also appeared in Adam West TV series from back in the 60s. She had her appearance in those episodes as well. and her costume more or less remained the same. Sometimes it was just variation of colors. It was either dark and yellow, or it was more like Batman's in the sense of a little bit of yellow and then gray and light blue. But the general idea of the costume always remained the same. It did not change a whole lot over the years. She also had another persona when she broke her back in the comics. She became a member of the Birds of Prey. She was completely paralyzed, but she used her knowledge to help other girls who are in crime fighting, such as Huntress and I believe Black Canary. She was helping them fight crime by gathering data and simply working from the headquarters at her computer, because her superhero days in that case were pretty much done. And I believe her name when she was paralyzed, her code name, was Oracle. So she was able to gather data for her female colleagues to use in the crime fighting, and she was practically the brains behind the whole operation. So yeah, she has quite a long history, I would say, and she's a pretty good character. So that's Batgirl. Going on to the next one here is the Huntress, another member of the Birds of Prey. This is a costume that was sort of reinvented, but if you ask me, it looks pretty much the same as the classic one. I don't see much of a difference. Huntress did have an appearance specifically, that I recall it, in the Justice League Unlimited, and she was very attracted to the superhero called Question, the one who is a master of discovering all sorts of conspiracies and proving that those conspiracies are real. And she has very extreme ways of dealing with criminals. She prefers if she can just kill them rather than spare them. That she even got on bad terms with Batman, who is almost a borderline like her, that he would go an extra mile, but even he restrains himself from striking a deadly blow to the criminals. But the way she was portrayed in the cartoon series, she seems to have a very iron-willed mind, and she always seeks vengeance and utter destruction of the criminals. But Question managed to tame her a bit, so she's able to at least just beat up the bad guys and throw them in prison. She has one of the versions I have of her from the classic versions. She has an actual bow stick for a weapon, but this particular version came with a mini crossbow, which unfortunately is lost, so I cannot show you how that looks like. But it's a small pistol-sized crossbow that she uses most of the time in her crime fighting. So yeah, that would be, she has this nice soft cape made of rubber, and she has articulation pretty much the same as Supergirl. There is no up crunch and there is no ankle pivot, but the usual, the arms can move, and also no articulation at the wrists, but she can move up and down the arms at the elbows. The legs can move a bit aside to the left and to the right, a small split. She can bend at the knees and bend at the ankles. The legs cannot move forward much, or very little, about that much. No movement to the back, and no waist articulation, so she cannot turn left and right in the waist. But anyway, that would be Huntress. The next one after that is the Catwoman. Now Catwoman, this particular figure was released along the lines of New 52, but in a separate series that covers the bad guys and the ladies. So this is the way she looks, and this is pretty much the same usual costume she wears for quite a long time compared to her classic interpretations, which is more of a purple costume with a very long black hair. But in this case, this pretty much harkens back to the second Batman movie with Michael Keaton back in the early 1990s, the way that was portrayed by Michelle Pfeiffer. So she looks pretty decent, and I still like this outfit. I have several versions of Catwoman dating back to her very first appearance in the 1950s or around 1940s. I have her in that form of a figure. Then I have a more classic look of her from the 1990s, and then I have this one and another one that looks almost the same, but it's from the Hush series. So yeah, more about those versions of Catwoman in another video where I will just cover the different versions of her that I have. But yeah, this Catwoman came with a whip that's more of a, not really rubber, I would say, it's more of a bit of a hardened plastic, but at least it was made curled, and it's a good accessory, I guess. Nothing spectacular, but at least gives you the point that she does use a whip in her fighting. And her personality is such that she appeared in numerous comics, obviously, specifically fighting Batman, but she also seems to like Batman, that's what it's being indicated. And her real name is Selina Kyle. She is a lady who likes animals and fights for the rights of the animals, but she specifically likes cats. Her story was a bit modified, slightly modified in the old Batman movie, but she did appear in the Adam West TV series back in the 60s, and except back then her costume was a bit different as well. So her costume kept changing from one decade to another, and she's usually interested not to kill anybody when she goes and steals things, and she's mostly attracted to diamonds and any museum artifacts that are worth a great deal of money. So she's mostly attracted to that. She also appeared in numerous cartoon series and some animated movies as well, and you can use her in Lego Batman games, especially the Batman Lego game number 3, Beyond Gotham. There is about 2 or 3 versions of her. She also appeared in the final movie of Batman in the Christopher Nolan trilogy. I believe she was played by Anne Hathaway in that particular one, and again her costume was quite different there as well. So she has numerous appearances, and I believe she went beyond that, and her personality always kept changing, because it seems to me she was not really meant to be bad all the way. So she's sort of on the borderline, 50-50. She can be bad when she wants to be, when she wants to steal something. But she can also be on the good side and help Batman fight criminals. So there was an indication in the Batman Brave and the Bold cartoon series that she had an appearance in several episodes, and in one particular episode she actually did marry Batman, and they had a kid together. So it was just an insinuation that Batman was going to probably end up with her one of these days. And when she got married to Batman, she practically became good all the way, and she still kept her fighting skills and all that going into that marriage. So anyway, that's Catwoman. The next one would be Harley Quinn. She was released around the same time as the New 52 figures, except she was released under the lineup for the bad guys, or specifically for the Suicide Squad, which later on became a movie, as most of you are familiar with. She came with several accessories, and this is of course a different interpretation of her. There is no blonde hair to speak of, and she's not wearing her classic costume of a jester. This is sort of more modified. And she comes with her mallet, that remains the same. Now the overpowered handgun that she usually used to carry is also gone, and replaced with rather simplified versions of the handguns that criminals use. She comes with 2 of them. They can be removed and put into a holster on each side of her legs. So this is pretty much how the gun looks like. Pretty decent mold. She can hold one gun in each hand, and it doesn't matter which hand it is, they all can hold it. So there we go. Now the grip is not very tight when it comes to holding it. It's a bit loose, but it will do the job. It can still stay in place. Her articulation again is very similar to that of Supergirl and Batgirl. She has no up crunch to speak of, and does not move in the waist either. So arms and legs is your usual bet in this case. And this is how she looks from behind. She has a small cape of a sort. Her real name is Harley Quinzel, I believe. Quinzel is definitely her last name, but I am not sure about the name now. She used to be a psychiatrist in the Arkham Asylum, and she used to treat Joker, who managed to practically twist her mind and make her be just as crazy as him. She ends up madly falling in love with him, and she's been following him around like a puppy ever since. She even quit her job and changed her appearance and became forever a love interest of Joker. And she's always there to help him commit crimes, and she also appeared in numerous comics and cartoon series, and lately she appeared in the Suicide Squad movie, where again she has a very different looking costume again compared to this. So there's several versions of her, and each of those versions has a different costume in the action figures. But more about that in another video, where I will be discussing and showing you some of the Harley Quinns I have in my collection aside from this one. So anyway, that would be Harley Quinn. And then the final one of the group is the Stargirl. Now Stargirl has been known, the way I understand that she's a member of Justice Society of America, which was a early version of Justice League from the time of World War II, before and after. And she's also seems to be a member of the Justice League as well, which was shown in the Justice League Unlimited, when she had an ongoing feud with Supergirl because there was a mutual jealousy between them. Her father is a superhero scientist who invented an armor that looks almost exactly like Iron Man's, but just much bulkier and bigger. I believe her father's superhero identity is called Rocket, or something like that. He was released in the Justice League animated action figure line by Mattel, and he was also released in DC Universe Classics. So I think her father's robotic form is called Stripe, or Red Stripe, or something like that. Anyway, she has her spear that she uses in the crime fighting, and this version pretty much looks the same as her classic version. I don't see a whole lot of difference. She did have an appearance also in the DC Universe Legends of Tomorrow ongoing TV series, where the members of the Legends of Tomorrow traveled into the past during World War II, and they met the Justice Society, where she is a member. So they came across her a few times in that TV series. She also appeared prominently in the Justice League Unlimited in several episodes there. And her articulation is pretty much the same as many of the other figures. She can move her, again, arms and legs, and then no articulation whatsoever in the waist or any up crunches. The legs can move a little bit, but again she cannot do a split, and she's pretty well done, I would say. From the stars on her along her sleeves and the way she was sculpted, she looks pretty decent, and I would say pretty well done. So yeah, that would be Stargirl. I have one more version of her, but more about that again in a separate video. So with this I would close my discussion on the ladies. Next time I am hoping to cover the actual members of the New 52, meaning the Justice League members, in their new attires, and I'm also hoping to cover in another video the reinvented bad guys from the New 52, meaning Darkseid and a couple of the other ones. But anyway, this is it for now. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoy this. If you like what you see, please do subscribe. If you like to leave any comments, feel free to do so. And I'll catch you guys next time.